Dr. Nardi here, back with another video. Have you ever heard that women talk more than men? The popular estimate is that women speak about 20,000 words a day, while men only use around 7,000. It feels sort of true, right? It's a common stereotype we hear all the time. But is it actually based on evidence? A group of psychologists decided to test this. They had 369 college students wear audio recorders and tracked how many words they actually spoke. The results? Women spoke an average of 16,215 words, and men spoke 15,669. That's a tiny difference that can easily be explained by chance. The researchers concluded that the stereotype of the talkative woman is completely unfounded. This example perfectly illustrates why we need a scientific approach to psychology. Our common sense and intuitions can often be wrong. So today, we're going to break down what it means to say psychology is a science. We'll explore how we acquire knowledge, what the features of science are, and why it's so important to distinguish science from pseudoscience. First, let's think about the different ways we acquire knowledge. The textbook outlines 5 main methods. Intuition. This is your gut feeling. You believe something because it just feels true. The problem is our intuitions are often driven by cognitive biases, not facts. That weird feeling you get that your friend is lying might just be because they're preoccupied with something else. Authority. This is when we accept something as true because an authority figure told us so, like parents, teachers, doctors, or the media. This is efficient as we can't research everything ourselves, but authorities can be wrong, or they might have their own reasons to mislead you. Rationalism. This method uses logic and reasoning to reach a conclusion. For example, premise 1, all swans are white. Premise 2, this is a swan. Conclusion, therefore this swan is white. This is a sound way to acquire knowledge, but only if your premises are correct. And as it turns out, there are black swans in Australia, so the initial premise is wrong. Empiricism. This is acquiring knowledge through observation and experience. For centuries, people believed the world was flat because it looks flat. Empiricism is powerful, but our senses can deceive us. The scientific method. This is the gold standard and the method we're focusing on today. The scientific method is a process of systematically collecting and evaluating evidence to test ideas. It's the most likely method to produce valid knowledge. Scientists use systematic empiricism, careful, planned observations, and rationalism to draw logical conclusions from that evidence. So what makes a field like psychology a science? It's not what it studies, but how it studies it. Science has 3 fundamental features. Systematic empiricism. Science is built on observation, but not just any observation. It involves carefully planning, making, recording, and analyzing observations. This is what the researchers did in the talkativeness study. They didn't just trust their impressions, they systematically recorded and counted the words. It addresses empirical questions. These are questions about the way the world actually is, and they can be answered by making systematic observations. The question, do women talk more than men, is empirical. In contrast, science cannot answer questions about values, like whether something is good or bad, or just or unjust. It creates public knowledge. After conducting their research, scientists publish their work in professional journals. This is essential for 2 reasons. First, it makes science a large-scale collaboration across time and space. Second, it allows science to be self-correcting. Other scientists can detect and correct errors so that over time, our knowledge gets closer and closer to the truth. This brings us to a crucial topic, pseudoscience. Pseudoscience refers to beliefs and activities that are claim to be scientific but lack one or more of those 3 features we just discussed. A classic example is the theory of biorhythms. The idea is that our physical, intellectual, and emotional abilities run in predictable cycles that start at birth. It sounds scientific using terms like sinusoidal waves, but there is simply no scientific evidence to support it. One of the hallmarks of a true science is that its claims are falsifiable. This means a claim must be expressed in a way that you could make an observation that would prove it wrong. The claim that women talk more than men is falsifiable, and it was falsified by the study we discussed. In contrast, pseudoscientific claims are often unfalsifiable. For example, some people who believe in ESP claim that psychic powers can disappear when they are observed too closely. This is a convenient excuse. If a psychic performs well on a test, it's proof they have powers. But if they fail, it's because their powers disappeared under scrutiny. There's no possible observation that could disprove the claim, which means it's not scientific. It's important to be able to spot pseudoscience because it can be harmful, leading people to choose ineffective treatments for serious medical conditions instead of empirically supported ones. So, why is this scientific approach necessary for psychology? Because our common sense, or folk psychology, is often wrong. Many people believe that letting out anger by punching something is a good way to relieve it. Scientific research shows this actually tends to make people more angry. Most people believe they would never confess to a crime they didn't commit, but research shows false confessions are surprisingly common. We fall for these myths because of mental shortcuts like confirmation bias, where we focus on evidence that confirms what we already believe and ignore evidence that contradicts it. This is why psychologists cultivate an attitude of skepticism, not cynicism, but a willingness to consider alternatives and search for evidence before accepting a claim as true. This scientific mindset is also crucial for the clinical practice of psychology. Questions about what causes psychological disorders and which treatments are effective are empirical questions that science can answer. Treatments that have been scientifically studied and shown to work are called empirically supported treatments. Examples include cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, for depression and anxiety, and exposure therapy for phobias. So psychology is a science because it uses a rigorous method to understand human behavior. This method helps us move beyond flawed intuitions to build a more accurate and useful understanding of ourselves and others. That's all for today. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more content on the science of psychology, and let me know in the comments, what's a common psychological belief you've always been skeptical about? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.